This is Non-Monogamous Mark from Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association, and I'm here with a question for you. Who are the people that are holding you back from being your authentic best self? You see, we all have someone that's holding us back. And so today, the question to you, and what we're going to be talking a little bit about, is who those people are. But this is the 8th video in my 12 video series about Be Your Own Hero and the 12 Habits of a Hero. A hero is someone who practices being their best authentic self every day. You know, sometimes staying true to yourself takes being a hero, especially when it comes to maybe not being the person that your relatives or your friends really think that you should be, and living your life as a sexually liberated, ethical, and consensual non-monogamous person. It takes being a hero sometimes to live a life as a sexually liberated, ethical, and consensual non-monogamous person. You know, and at the end of this video, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my nonprofit association and how it helps you to be a better hero every day. Now back to our question though, who are the people that are holding you back from being your best authentic self? You know, oftentimes, I'll be real honest, is in answering this question, there are two parts to it. The first is what's going on inside of you. In other words, oftentimes it is not the people outside of ourselves, but it's yourself. It's what goes on within yourself that actually does more to hold you back from being your best authentic self than it is anybody on the outside. But of course, there are those people on the outside of our world as well that also can hold you back from being your authentic best self. You know, I remember when I was getting ready to, I was in my last year of high school, senior in high school, and I was starting to sort out. I mean, I couldn't go to college, didn't take any college prep classes because I knew that I would never be able to afford to go to college and get a college degree. And nobody in my family had ever gotten a college degree. And so I knew that college was not going to be in the cards for me, at least not at that time. But I had been working full-time as a chef in a nightclub. And so one of the opportunities that came up for me was to be able to take and go up to Alaska, this is in the 70s, middle 70s, and work on the pipeline. The people that were doing up there as a cook. And the people that were doing that, just a great paying union job, and they were out there making bank. They'd come back from 2 years on working on the pipeline, and they'd buy a house and pay cash for it. And so for me, as a guy just getting out of high school, that was an opportunity available to me, and I was seriously thinking about that. But then I figured out that I really, through high school, I felt like that my life was kind of stuck in a box. And that box was being defined by those people that were in my life around me. And I needed to break out of that box in order to be the best person that I wanted to be at that point in my life, and even to find out who that person was. And so to break out of that box, I decided to go in the Army. And I remember it was in January of 1975. I'm graduating in June. I went to the Army place where it was signing all the paperwork in order to join the Army. They had a program called the Delayed Enlistment Program. So I was joining in January, but not going to go in until June after I graduated. And I remember sitting down and asking the person, now Mom and I, we had already been talking about this, and she figured being living in Burien, Washington, just outside of Seattle, not too far from Tacoma, she kind of figured that, and we had talked about that I'd get stationed at Fort Lewis because I could sign a contract with the Army, and they were guaranteeing the job I'd be doing, they were guaranteeing where I'd be stationed, all kinds of things. And so she took and dropped me off at the center that day for my physical exam and filling out all this paperwork. And she just figured that I'd be coming home and telling her that I'm going to be stationed at Fort Lewis. And that way I could live at home and just drive back and forth to Fort Lewis. Well, truth of the matter was, when I got there to the center to sign up all that paperwork, and the guy says, well, where would you like to be stationed? Where would you like to be for your duty station? And I looked at him and I says, how far can I get away from home? And he said, well, Germany is a long ways from home. I wasn't a good student in school, and so it's like the only thing I knew about Germany is that's where World War II was fought, and I didn't even know where it was except for it was on a different continent, which just will be a different planet as far as I knew. And but I remembered, knew that people didn't speak English there, and I knew that that was where World War I and World War II was fought, and I thought, well, why not? That'd be a long ways from home, and so signed me up for Germany. And so I then come after June, went into the Army and got my basic training, went on from there, got some more training for my job occupational skill, and then after that came home for a week, and then off to Germany. And for me, that was really a critical part of my life, because it allowed me to break out of that mold and no longer be held back from being the best person that I was trying to be at that point in my life. And so ask yourself, who is keeping you kind of defined? And in my non-monogamous life, later on in my life, which of course, because I was monogamous for 25 years of my marriage, that was of course after I came back from being in the Army and then went on to college, and then much later, it's like, who's holding me back? Well, I was being defined then by that point as the religious Christian that I was. So I had to break out of the mold again, and in order to break out of the mold at that point, one day I woke up and I had been heavily involved in church. I mean, I'm talking about going out on Billy Graham crusades to try to save people and all kinds of things like that, and serving on many boards and nonprofits that are church-based programs and organizations and all kinds of things like that. And one day, I decided that that was not working for me in my life, and I walked away from that. And I walked away from the people that were in my life at that time, and with the exception of my wife. She was the only person other than my relatives, but the people that I really kind of hung out with, I walked away from them because they were all those religious people, just like where I was, and that's not what I wanted to. I didn't feel like that was going to help me to be my best self, and so I walked away from that. Now, I had been, at that point, been married for 20 years. My wife, she's like, wow, what's going on with Mark? But, it's something that I just had to do. So the question is, who are the people that are holding you back from being your best authentic self? For me, it was a lot of those people in my life back there when I was in high school. It was the friends and relatives that were kind of defining me in that box and telling me, well, this is who you are. And I had to get away from that. And then later it was all those people at church. I had to get away from that. But it doesn't mean you always have to then get away from those people always, but sometimes that kind of helps. But, then the other part of this this question is, I said it's going to be about who externally, who outside yourself. Because the other part is, in reality, I found that it is me that's holding me back from being my best authentic self. And so, when I started to look inward, I had to start to really kind of step up to the plate a little bit and realize that it's not those people out there that I could point fingers at. It's not that. And it was myself that was holding me back, and I had to really do a job at stepping up to the plate. And I went on a journey to grow, and it took me about 1.5 years to get to a point when I could finally be my authentic self, which I realized was suddenly, it was a person that no longer felt that monogamy was the answer to the things that I dealt with in my life. And I had never been with another woman, and I just knew that it was frustrating for me to try to make monogamy work, and had tried to do that for a long time. By the time I finally talked to my wife about non-monogamy, I had been trying for 25 years to make monogamy work. And so it was me then having to go through 1.5 years time, a process of really searching myself and growing. And when I started that journey, I didn't even realize that journey would take me down a road to wanting to explore non-monogamy. But that's exactly where it ended up taking me. And so come back to you again, is who are the people that are holding you back from being your best authentic self? In answering that question, I'm going to recommend a solution. And that is that you have a conversation with the people that are holding you back from being your best authentic self. That starts with having a conversation with yourself. It also then starts with having a conversation with those in your life that you just can't walk away from. Now, in my case, then, it was having a conversation with my sister. because she's really the only relative that I have left living in my life that's a blood relative, an older sister I have. And so everybody else is gone in my life. And so, you know, she when she would, you know, we didn't see each other like all the time, but once every couple months. And she was someone that I cared about. And we would take then, and I wanted to let her know that my wife and I opened our marriage up, and we were now living a non-monogamous life. And it's kind of funny because she got the message totally wrong, and it doesn't matter that she did. I at least was my own best. I was my own hero, and then I got the courage to go out there and have the conversation with her. So I didn't have to feel like that I was hiding something from her and keeping something back from her. She has grown-up daughters. At that point, they were in their early 20s, and I remember she basically went home after I talked to her and told her about my having an open relationship, that my wife and I opened our marriage. And she went home and told her daughters, she says, "Oh yeah, Mark's seen somebody on the side." You know, and it's like she didn't really get it. And a lot of people won't. But nonetheless, I then felt much freer after I had that conversation with her. Now, my partner, Kat, she's done the same thing, that when she came out of her monogamous marriage after 20-some years, and she got divorced, and she went into a polyamorous relationship. And, you know, she didn't even live in the same state as her parents did, but she felt the need to not keep that from them, but instead to go ahead and just tell them, open up. Now, these are people who raised her in the church, and they're kind of religious people, and so how they're going to respond and react, you know, she wasn't quite sure, but she wanted to be her best authentic self, and didn't want to feel like that when she was around her parents, she had to be careful about who she was talking about and the people that were in her life, since she had just gotten divorced. And so she went ahead and she told her parents that I'm living a polyamorous life. And of course, they're like, well, what's that? And she told them. And no, they weren't too keen on that. And then it was about 9 months later that she met me. And then she, you know, she was in a relationship with another person that they knew about. They had met him. And then she got in a relationship with me. And so I started wanting to communicate with them. And today I have a talking relationship with them. They don't understand and they don't accept our lifestyle and our choice to be non-monogamous. But at least we don't feel that we have to hide it from them. They don't always approve of things. Once in a while, they'll go ahead and check us out, what's going on in our online world. And sometimes then they'll let Kat know that they're really disappointed. And all the normal religious tactics that get used. And try to putting her on a guilt trip and all, you know. But she feels free though, and that's the best thing. And Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association, you know that one of the things that we really focus on is for you to be able to increase the abundance, the liberation, and the freedom in your life. And that freedom starts with you internally, not necessarily free from other people and what have you. I mean, we're not free of our relatives, but it's such a freeing feeling to be able to take and be authentic and not have to hide. Now, I do know that there are many cases and many people out there that don't feel that they can ever accomplish and achieve that degree of freedom. And I'm not here suggesting that you really need to run out there and come out of the closet, you know, to your relatives, your neighbors, your boss. You know, I have a friend in Seattle that works in a high-level security job, and he has to go through these high-level government secretive investigative security clearances where, I mean, they check him all out. They make sure that he, you know, they go out and they interview his neighbors and all kinds of stuff. And the FBI shows up at people's doors and says, yeah, we're here with some questions about your neighbor and things like that. And so he and his wife, they've been non-monogamous. They've been ethically and consensually non-monogamous for quite a few years, but they kept that a secret from their neighbors. But then they moved into a new house, and when they moved into that new house, they didn't keep it as a secret because, I mean, this guy, his wife, has a live-in boyfriend that lives in the house with them, and so they just let it be known amongst their neighbors that we are non-monogamous. And so when this guy's, every 5 years, this guy's security clearance comes around, and he was a little concerned, like, well, what should I do? And for my security clearance, and he decided to go ahead and he couldn't hide it anymore because the FBI was going to be showing up to his neighbors, and the result was very interesting, because after they did this whole investigation, they do every 5 years on him. They did this whole investigation. They then sat him down and had a chat, and the chat went like this. Well, we understand that you and your wife have relationships with other people. And so is there anything that you hide from each other? No, we don't hide anything from each other. And is there anything you hide from anybody? No, there's nothing we hide from anybody. And the thing that for our national security that they were most concerned about was the fact that if they had anything at all that they were keeping hidden, then whatever it was that they were hiding could possibly come back to them and be used to blackmail them, so that then they could be convinced to, or he could be convinced to share some national secrets or something. He works for a national government contractor, and that was the main thing. Is that they said, they came back and says, hey, then no problem. You got your clearance renewed, or your security clearance renewed for another 5 years, because we don't have to worry about somebody coming and blackmailing you because you got some dark, deep secret that you're holding back, and we can see that you don't, and so you got the clearance. And so even then, when it comes to situations like that he was able to feel such a freedom to know that he could be his authentic self, and he didn't have to worry about his clearance and his neighbors and all these other people in their life. And so there's still, though, those cases where we have relatives, though, that we have kids involved. In this case, they have kids involved, and one of their relatives do not know, one of their sets of parents do not know that they live an ethically and consensually non-monogamous life. And so there's all kinds of situations that are individual. Sometimes those situations are sticky, particularly if you got kids involved. And I understand all that, and so I certainly don't want to tell you that, yes, you've got to run out there and be, in order to be your best authentic self, in order to be able to look in the mirror and say, I'm my own hero, that you need to be totally out of the closet. That's not at all what I'm saying here today. But you do need to then take and just ask yourself, who outside of you, and then look at yourself and saying, what stuff is going on in my own life that is holding me back from being my best authentic self? And then if there are people out there that are holding you back from being your best authentic self, then I encourage you that maybe a conversation. Now, if you don't necessarily want to become out of the closet with your non-monogamous life, then that's fine, as long as it's not really holding you back from being your best authentic self. But anybody in your life, maybe your best friend, or whoever the person may be, a coworker, a neighbor, a relative, well, go ahead and be your own hero and have the conversation with the people who are holding you back from being your best authentic self. Those people who you say to yourself, well, what if they found out? Whether it be found out about a non-monogamous life, or found out about any other of the things going on in your life. What if they found out that we're swingers and we go to a sex club once a month, or once every 2 months, or once a week, or once every 6 months, whatever, but we like having sex with other people? Well, don't live under that fear and that concern where you're afraid that somebody's going to find out. If you're afraid that somebody's going to find out, just go ahead and have that conversation with them. Well, so I want to get on now with the habit that we give you each week to work on, and that every week we provide to you a new habit to work on. But before I get to that habit, I want to go back to week 4. The habit in week 4 was to write it down. And I found out something really cool the other day, and it's a website called 750words.com. That's 750words.com. I'll put the link in the description. But that's a site where, as I said to you on the habit for week 4, was get the things cleared out, get them out of your head, get them on paper. Because the more stuff that gets stuck up here, the more it kind of starts to hold you back from being your true best self, because you can't be creative, your mind doesn't flow the same, because you're trying to keep too much stuff up here. And so get it out on paper. And so go back and review that on week 4 if you don't remember seeing the information on that. But this whole website about 750words.com, it's an amazing place because they're basically saying, yes, they found that when you get about 750 words flowing out of your brain and onto, in this case, the computer, once you've done that, then you're almost like clearing out your brain and all your thoughts, and it's almost like a meditative state. And so go there and take a look at the benefits and the advantages. Their homepage tells you about the benefits that they have found that come to you when you go ahead and get your thoughts out of your brain and record it on some paper. So take a look at that from week 4, and the website I'll link you to, 750words.com. But then for the habit this week, this is so important for you to be your own best hero, and that is a habit of getting started and finishing. And for that to happen, sometimes we need to really get really good at breaking down things into small chunks. I've shared with you before in a video about how I live my life 21 days at a time. Because one of the things that was just a really wonderful outcome of moving here to Ventura with Kat a year and a half ago is that I would spend 3 weeks living here with Kat, and then I would go back to Seattle and I'd spend 3 weeks living with Chris in Seattle. And then I'd go back and forth every 3 weeks. And after 6 months of doing this, this pattern started to occur, and it was 21 days. And then I remembered years ago reading about how it takes 21 days to really establish a good habit or a new habit. And so it takes 21 days to establish that habit. And I just thought, isn't that interesting? And it seems like that this works really well for my life, is to be able to take and break my life down into 21-day blocks or 3 weeks. And as I shared in a video not too long ago, a couple weeks ago, that then for every 3 weeks, I end up having 9 things that I'll write down that I look to accomplish in that 3-week period. So there's 9 specific things. So I may have a goal, for instance, that for the year of what I want to accomplish for the year, or even 2 years and 5 years. Because yes, I have my vision, my goals for my life, and the vision I have for myself. They're 1 year, and they're 2 year, and they're 5 year goals and visions and dreams for my life. But I go ahead and I break it all down to then bring it back to these 21-day chunks. And so you get in the habit of getting started and finishing. And sometimes in that 21 days, there's just not enough time for me to get it always finished, what I set out to finish. So that means that it just goes into the next 21-day period of time for me. And so I focus to finish it on that next 21 days then. And so for your habit this week, give this some thought about having a habit in your life of getting started and finishing. And after a while, when you have that habit formed in your life, you'll find that it becomes a real rewarding experience, and you'll start to getting actually more done because you're getting started with things more often and you're finishing with things more often, and you accomplish so much more, and you just start to get so much more excited about the life that you're then living. And then sure enough, at the end of the day, you'll be able to look in the mirror and say, I am my own hero. So I have 3 things then I'd like for you to do that will be for you and also for me. The first thing is to scroll down the page a little bit, and you'll find a comment box down there. And go ahead and leave a question for me or a comment about any of your thoughts or how you like this video. So please go ahead and share a comment. I really appreciate that. And then give the video a like. It's just that click on that little like thing there on the screen, and also then subscribe to my channel, and that way you won't miss any future videos. And with those videos, then we continue talking about how that through our Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association, we help you to be your own hero and to grow in your life and create new normals in your life to live your non-monogamous life in a way that you thrive. And if you don't have a non-monogamous life that you're currently living, then at least you'll be associating and involved with people who think differently than yourself. And that's where it all started for me, is that one day I started having somebody, that I was trying to tell him how wrong his life was, living a non-monogamous life, and his girlfriends. I chatted with all of them for about a week's time, and then And then I started realizing, well, wait a minute, maybe it's me that should be looking at my life instead of criticizing it and condemning their life. I should take a look at my own life. And so that's how it all started for me. And so maybe just by hanging out here and listening to these videos, that I stretch and exercise your mental muscle, and you'll be stretched one day to where you'll start to think, you know, maybe a not ethically and consensually non-monogamous life is a solution for me. Or maybe where then you're already living a non-monogamous life, but it's not exactly ethically and consensually. You're kind of sneaking around and being a little dishonest and a little, just not truthful, and potentially could really hurt someone that you care for and you love. Whether that be your children or your spouse or your boyfriend, your girlfriend. And so I'd encourage you, if that's your situation, then go ahead and be your own hero. And instead of sneaking around, live an ethical and consensual non-monogamous lifestyle, and we can help you to do that. And so the association that I co-founded is called the Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association, and we help freedom seekers be their best self, living life increasing in abundance and liberation and freedom. And Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association has a lot of different things that we are working to accomplish and achieve and to do. And go ahead and click on that link at the description, at the top of the description for this video, and click on that link and get on our email list so that you can make sure that you're informed and stay on top of all the things that we have going on. That as we send out emails, we don't send very many out right now, very regularly, but that'll at some point that'll start to change, and we start pulling more things together that we want to communicate with you about, and we'll be doing that through sending out emails to you and keeping you informed as to what we have available to help you with your life. So thanks a lot for checking out this video, and go ahead and remember to click on that link.